Hello, hello. So, have any of you seen those videos by, what is this woman's name? Hold on. Diana underscore Boogie Latino. I'm sure that a lot of people have seen it. It's basically, the preface of it is that people that are not trained dancers, that just dance their cultural dance, that they look like they don't even have to try, whereas the on-to dancers and anybody that's trained, it doesn't look natural. And I don't know if she's necessarily saying that it's not correct, but there are elements of things that she's talking about that I get. Do I think that people shouldn't be trained in salsa? No, I don't think that that's a problem. But I do see things going on today where there's no distinction between what a social dance is and what a performance dance is, and how to make that distinct difference. In other words, when to do what, where, and how to do it. So before I get into it, I am going to talk about my background, because I usually don't do that, but I totally understand when people feel like, who is this person talking? Like, what is her experience? Da, da, da. I don't really like to go into that listing. Oh, I did this, I did that, da, 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 but it seems to be a big deal. So I'm just going to talk about my background. I've been dancing most of my life, all different forms of dance. Trained dancer. I have a BFA in dance. My degree is specifically in performance. My parents were the first dancers to bring mambo over to Europe in the 1950s, when the whole Palladium era exploded. Originally, they were ballroom dancers, and they did lifts as well. And then the mambo hit and the Palladium hit, and they, true to form, my father was like, had his nose in everything that was going on. That was just his personality. He was kind of like, even that way about becoming a professional dancer. He literally called my mother on the phone one day. They had been studying, and he's like, let's go professional. And that's just kind of like how he operated. So when I was like in my teens, there were times where my parents took me out to social dances with like the old school dancers. So I knew the basics of salsa, and I was always drawn to it even back then, because in those studios they had, I believe one of the places was like ABC Studios or Dance Hall or something like that. I remember that distinctly. And there was the foxtrot and waltz and all of those dances in one room, and then there was a Latin room, so there were the separate rooms. And so I'd always find myself going to the Latin room. So I did have some exposure before I like got into it hardcore. But I was studying dance for many years. I think my mother put me into my first dance class probably when I was 5. It was a local studio. My father wanted me the hell out of there, because the studio was pretty bad. It was just a local dance studio. And he said the minute he saw that the warm-up was to put my leg on the bar and drop into a split, that was the warm-up. He took me out of there because he didn't want me to get injured. I mean, I was pretty young, so I might not have got injured, because your body is so nimble at that age. But my mother ended up, I think I didn't dance for a few years, and then about, I don't know, I guess I was about 9 or 10. My mother started taking me into the city to Carnegie Hall. She took me to Newbert Ballet. I hated it. I hated it because the girls there were very snooty, and I mean, not so whatever, but they had like the blonde hair and the blue eyes. They were all rich from the Upper East Side. I was from East New York, Brooklyn. So I was chubby. I wasn't thin. They were like thin. They used to take the train by themselves. That's how they did it, because they lived in the city, and that's how they traveled. So I'm literally giving you a full background of my whole dance life. So I went there, I think, I don't know, a few years. So basically what would happen is that my mother would take me on her way to work. drop me off. I would take the class, and then I would wait. And my brother, who went to Performing Arts High School in Midtown, would come and pick me up with his girlfriend, who was a ballet dancer. She was a dance major at Performing Arts, and my brother was a music major. And I just say this because I remember them making out in the hall, like, whatever. But anyhow, I didn't like dancing there. I didn't like the culture. I remember Miss Newbert calling me into the office and literally telling me that I needed to lose weight, and I was 9 years old. But you have to understand, that's how it was. This was like a strict ballet studio. I also took some tap classes there with my mother. We both took the tap classes together with a woman named Mary Jane Brown, who was very popular back then. So there were also little studios within Carnegie Hall that rented space. I believe this was like International Dance or Dance International. That's how I remember the name of it. I'm not sure, but it was something like Dance International. I vaguely remember that. So I did. She specialized in soft shoe tap, and so me and my mother used to go and take the class together, which was kind of cool. My mother loved tap dancing, so then I broke it to my mother that I didn't want to dance anymore, and that, like, I didn't want to dance. So I didn't dance for a few years, but my mother didn't give up. She wanted me to have that background, being a dancer herself, I guess. She knew the joy of it. And maybe she just realized that I needed an environment that was a little bit more laid back and where I could feel accepted and comfortable. So then she enrolled me in a neighborhood studio on, was it Woodhaven Boulevard? I don't know, somewhere in Queens. I don't even remember. I remember it visually, but I have a very bad memory, but I remember it. I was there so I got in there and I was taking ballet tap and jazz, which, with the neighborhood schools, that's usually the typical. They have the ballet tap and jazz education there. And, it's not top notch. My father was very critical again. My father, he had very high standards. So I loved my teacher, and I would get really upset at my father because he was critical of her, like she wasn't good enough, whatever. But the thing was that really sparked my joy of dance again. I got heavily into like jazz dancing there. I loved the jazz classes, and that's when I started loving dance again. So I'm glad that my mother didn't give up with that. In the interim, or I should say throughout my younger years, I was also introduced to music. I come from a family of musicians and dancers, as you know, and my father was also a trumpet player and my mother sang. My brother recently got some reels, or old audio reels of my parents, even their songs that my father wrote and my mother sang after their dance career ended because my father developed a tumor in his spine. And it was pretty unbelievable. There were some of the reel had my mother just singing a cappella, and it was like fucking unbelievable. Like, my mother was incredible. My father wrote the music, and the music was great. He had somebody else arrange it. I thought that the trumpet solo in one of the songs was my father, but it turns out that he hired a band, and he hired the pianist that played on the record was also the one that arranged my father's originally written song. So just it's just a little side thing. It's just really incredible to hear that. My grandfather was also a musician. He was a violinist. He actually owned a Stradivarius violin, which unfortunately we didn't get to see because he married some crazy bitch. Okay. Let's leave the family drama out of it. He married someone that was like half his age after my grandmother passed. And we don't know what happened to the Stradivarius, and my niece is a violinist, so that really would have been in good hands if we had inherited the Stradivarius. Nobody knows what happened to the Stradivarius, but man, that's like crazy. But he owned a Stradivarius violin. He worked for the government as well. And one of the reels that was transferred over was a reel of my grandfather when he was working for the government, the mission in the government mission in Vietnam. So it was very, very interesting. He was talking about the culture, he was talking about yoga, he was talking about astrology. And it was just like kind of a family reel where my brothers were playing piano and he was commenting and whatever. So all of us studied music. We all studied piano. My oldest brother originally studied trumpet. My father taught him, but he wasn't into it. So he continued with piano. And then the brother right above me, he ended up taking over learning trumpet. So all of my family, we all studied music and have a background in music. When I went to performing arts, which was the new school at that time, LaGuardia, I was a music major. I did want to go for dance, but the issue was that I was in an accelerated class for the smart kids in junior high school, and I skipped 7th grade. So in order to finish the accelerated program, I had to spend my 9th grade in junior high school. So I went from like 7th to 9th. So we did 7th and 8th grade material and then 9th, right? So when I went to audition for dance, it was a problem because they didn't, unless you were like with ABT or something, you were not going to get in as a sophomore. So that was devastating for me because I desperately wanted to be a dance major. A lot of times I would spend my lunch hour up in the dance department on the 9th floor just watching the dancers. It was pretty heartbreaking for me. But I was a music major, which was good because I got all that music theory, all the music education, had to take a second instrument. I mean, my heart wasn't totally into it because I was always more of drawn to the dance than the music. And a lot of the music education and even doing music was forced on me by my father. Now I'm grateful for it. Then I hated it. I hated it. But I'm so grateful because it really made a difference in understanding dance and music and the way that it's set up and the way that I dance, which is very musical. So I did have that education in music, which was good. Then college, I went off. I got my BFA in dance, which was great. The training there was great. Unfortunately, there were a lot of budget cuts, which was not great. But I still got my degree, graduated with a BFA. Started getting into salsa again because the first time that I went dancing to a local club, it was actually a merengue club. It was called Casa Borinquen, which was on Myrtle Avenue, off the J line or the M line, I believe. And the person who took me was a childhood friend. Her name was Joyce Ramos. She took me to my first Latin club, official club, outside of the experience that I had in my teens, with my father taking me to like an older generation club, whatever, and learning just the basics. And then she took me to a club down by Reed Street called Les Poulets. That club was slamming. I fell completely in love with salsa, completely. I think when I was younger, I was a little bit like, whatever, because, my parents were into it, so it, like, wasn't the cool thing to do. But my love of salsa happened when I was in college. I was going for my degree, and I started going to these clubs. And I remember very vividly, this was a very small, intimate club, but it was awesome. It had, like, a little stage, and they had, like, Tito Nieves came there, Mark Anthony, I don't know if Mark Anthony, Tito Rojas, all of those 90s salsa bands. I remember seeing Mark Anthony, I believe, at Club Broadway that was uptown. And I remember there was this one guy, Angel. He was so good. I was in love with the way that he danced. And I was like, one day I'm going to dance with that guy. But I wasn't going to just like go up to him. Even though I was a trained dancer, so it was really easy for me to acclimate to dancing salsa because I could pick up movement. And even though I don't consider myself someone who picks up movement fast, like if I had to go into a modern day salsa class, I'd probably be behind. I'm not quick at picking up movement, but once I get it, I'm good at delivering it. So that's important. One day, after several months of just going every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Sundays would be side street, I saw this guy Angel at the Copa. I said, all right, I'm going to go up and ask him to dance. Well, when I asked him to dance, I did ask him to dance in Le Poulet. I know this is unnecessary information, but it's kind of almost like bringing me back to when I first got into salsa and I was just in love with it. So these are just kind of little stories. Anyhow, long story short, he was like impressed by my dancing. That gave me more confidence. I, became better and better as I danced. But I basically got my education in the salsa dance scene, like hands-on. I didn't go to a class initially to learn salsa dancing. I had the basic steps I learned, again, from my parents out at a social in my teens, but everything else I learned in the club. And then I started getting into more performance. I danced with this company, Razzmatazz. Someone told me, oh, I could see you in that company because it's not straight salsa, it's also other stuff. The head of that company was more of a hustle dancer. And even though he boasted power on two, a lot of his dance performances, like in the middle, he'd start dancing on one, and it was and like now that I'm older and I can look back in retrospect, I can see that he was feeling it more from his hustle background than from his salsa background. So it's funny because a lot of the performances that I did in my 20s, and I didn't do a lot of salsa performances, but the ones that I did were never on where I ended up, because I would just want to perform. So I would just acclimate to anything. When you dance in the club, you really need to be able to acclimate to on one, on two, on seven, on three, someone who can't keep the rhythm. It's an incredible education on following. And this is something that is missing today because people have jumped to performance and they've missed the step of going through the social scene. And that's exactly how I came up. I have a deep belief in it because I've seen the difference between people that just go straight to a class. Now, in the 90s, when people were teaching in class, they were going out to socials. It wasn't like, there were dance performances, and these dance studios would go perform. But you didn't just jump. If you had a natural ability, talent, and something that they were looking for in a performer, they wouldn't just put you on the stage. Nowadays, there's not even the whole social background and that part of the journey of salsa has been completely demolished. It barely exists. The entire New York scene, now I can say I haven't been out, but we live in an age where there's videos all over the place. I follow all the promoters. I still follow them because I was connected to them when I used to go out myself. So I see what's happening, and I see these like gorgeous dancers, and I mean, they're like doing shit that's like unbelievable, but yet they can barely follow a lead. And I feel like that's such a loss. It's a loss not only to them, but it's a loss to their students who'll never experience the essence of where salsa comes from. I'm speaking from a background in New York style salsa. Getting back to my background. So in my early 20s, I really wanted to perform a lot. I was really I came out from that performance degree and I was ready to get on the stage. And so it was difficult because, I was very sensitive and very young and very honest and very straightforward. I'm still that way. I'm very direct, very straightforward. There's always so much drama in these companies. I just wasn't having it. I wasn't going to get in a car where people were smoking weed. At that time, weed was not legal. I was like, I'm not into this. This is not me. A lot of jealousy, a lot of cattiness. I mean, whatever. So that I left Razzmatazz. And then after that, I was doing dancing. I did this PBS special. I met these dancers there, and then I got a job through that dancer to do Sabido Gigante. Well, I think I did that after. First, I went to Mexico and I danced on a resort, but it wasn't salsa. It was just general dancing and shows like on the resort. And the connection that I got through the PBS special, he also had a connection to Sabido Gigante. I didn't have a partner. So I literally went to a club and I saw someone that I used to dance with every time I would go out. And I'm like, how would you like to be on TV and get flown out to Miami and get paid to, you know, whatever. So literally within 3 weeks, we just threw something together, maybe even 2 weeks. I don't even know. It was fast. Because I told the guy, I'm like, he's like, I can get you on Sabido Gigante, but they want salsa dancers and you need a partner. So I just went out there and hustled and got the partner. But it was always like that. It was always just like, it was always ridiculously hard to get that to happen. I performed again with that person who was the connection. The reason that I performed with him was because his partner had a spinal stroke and she had to go to physical therapy to regain movement in her lower body. So apparently she had a chiropractic adjustment and something went awry and her legs just collapsed from under her and she could not walk. Like, it was that crazy. Yeah. So she had gone through most of the physical therapy, but she couldn't perform, and they were scheduled to go back or something like that. So I stepped in for her, but then again, there was more drama. There's always fucking drama. Because he didn't want to pay me for my portion of the performance. He wanted to pay for his partner's flight out there, even though she wasn't performing, and take the money that I should have gotten. And because I stood up for myself, that was the last gig I ever got through that connection. So you guys, especially the followers, you understand what I'm talking about, the kind of stupid drama and the unprofessionalism in the salsa scene, specifically earlier on. Even the sexism that went on. I mean, the thing about me is I've always had a voice and I've always stood up for myself. I just was very strong that way. It was good for me, but it wasn't really good for my career. Even when I went on the audition for Razzmatazz, I mean, and even back then, you know what, even in mainstream, they did this. They would call it cattle calls, and they'd have you stand in a line and you would have to rotate because they wanted to see your body and see if didn't matter about your talent. They wanted to see if your body was right for the role. So that same thing happened in Razzmatazz. They made me turn around. They wanted to make sure that I had some kind of ass going on behind. I don't have a big ass. I don't have, but I wasn't flat, so I made it. I mean, this is the stupid shit that you have to deal with, it's whatever. Anyhow, we joked about it after, like once I was in the group, but I'm just trying to give you a picture of what it was like back then. And it was not easy if you were someone that was going to stand up for yourself with a voice. And if you had some sense of self-respect and integrity to land a partner and really have something solid going on so that you could really rise. So at one point, I can't remember when, I ran into, this was after I left Razzmatazz actually. I ran into Paul Pellicoro, who was the head of dance sport. So if you were around back then, you know that he owned this big studio in Manhattan, like the biggest ballroom studio in Manhattan, but they did everything. They not only did ballroom, they also had Latin dance classes, but his thing, he was hardcore into the dance sport, which I never really was a part of. Me and my mother used to watch the program on Channel 13 with all these international dancers, and my mother would just be like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but that's not Latin dancing. I don't know what the hell that is. Just very over exaggerated. They've even done movies about the hyper exaggeration of that form of dance and the kind of bastardization they have of the Latin dances and everything. Even the tango where they do that head thing. Nobody in Argentina be doing this crazy shit with their head. Whatever. I'm trying not to hurt my neck because, I got the neck injury, but you get the picture. So anyway, what happened after that? Oh, so I saw Paul Pellicoro. It was at some kind of event. I don't remember what kind of event. It was some dance event, but I don't remember the specifics. And he had seen me perform at Club Broadway 2, which was in Queens. He happened to be there the night that I was performing. He's like, oh, I saw you performing. You know, you're great. Oh, you're no longer with Razzmatazz. Okay, well. And I said, yeah, I'm not. And I'm really looking for a partner because I really want to perform. So he goes, well, I'll perform with you. And I'm like, okay, like, you know, this sounds good. Da, da, da. So it wasn't that simple. Because he didn't want to just perform with me. He wanted to get me in to be an instructor. So I agreed to it, not really knowing what I was getting myself into. So I go, he wanted me to learn all these international dances. Fine. Again, my integrity kicks in. This isn't even trade. If he wants me to learn this international dance, which I don't believe in, it's not my cup of tea. I don't think that the dancers that do international dancing are not fantastic. I think they are. I don't think that the type of dance represents Latin dance at all. So, but whatever. That was the agreement. Okay, I'm going to get to perform. That's the carrot. You know, that's not the stick. That's the carrot that I'm focusing on. So he hired someone who was like an old school mambo dancer to choreograph a number for us, which was great. We started rehearsing. I was so fucking stoked. I was so excited about this. But he had to go be a judge at all these competitions. So that would get in the way of us continuing to get along in the process. So basically, I think about 3 months went by. I just was not happy there. And he was upset because he felt like he trained me in all this information. He literally like, I forgot the word expression I'm thinking of, but he like went off on me. Oh, you're like a sponge. I trained. Yeah. At one point he even had it was kind of embarrassing because he brought one of these international instructors in the room just to show how good I was getting it. And she was like, oh, do you have a background in jazz? And I was like, yes. I mean, your background is always going to show up, right? But he was just so impressed with how fast I was picking it up. And I was kind of like mortified that he had me on display like this. But whatever, to somebody who that's their forte, whatever. I mean, she was impressed, but it was like she also could see that she probably felt sense that I wasn't into it too. That was probably part of it. But anyhow, so he really went off on me and he was like, you know, I gave you all this training. I said, why are you upset? I'm not going to use it. I'm not using the training you gave me because I'm not interested in this style of dance, which I've told you before. We had an agreement. The agreement was that I was supposed to perform with you. That's why I came on. That was the deal. And he's like, well, I said, well, nothing. You're away judging all these competitions and I'm here working for you as something I don't want to do. So that was the end of that. So on to the next. What did I do next after that? I know I did some other performances. They had like the out of door Lincoln Center performances, but that was more like Latin modern dance, but the choreographer was Latin, so it had kind of like a Latin tinge to it. But it wasn't really anything salsa. Like, it was crazy for me that I was so obsessed with this salsa dancing, but I was never performing it like the way that I was doing it in the club. Like, if you look at the performances I did, the second guy, that one that was hooking me up with the jobs, the 1 or 2 jobs that I got, that I met at the PBS special, yeah, then I did Gotta Dance. That was on AMC. That was another thing. I got that through the head of Razzmatazz. I just danced with him alone. It wasn't like a group thing. We also did some other performance at that place on 34th Street. I can't even remember it. I really wanted to perform when I was younger. I really did. And it was just like a wall after wall after wall. And thinking back, it's really a shame because when I see some of the footage, on the Sabido Gigante tape, they still had the name of his partner, the guy that I danced with, right? So he was doing more like ballroom salsa, which was fine, you know, but it still wasn't really what I wanted to do, but it was fun and I had a great time. And so I was doing the style the way that he was choreographing. But if somebody looked back at my performances, they'd be like, oh, she's talking about New York on Two, but none of these performances reflect that. Yeah, because I was just trying to get my feet wet. I was just trying to perform and get out there. And that's what you have to do. You have to keep pushing. What happened after that? I can't even remember at this point. But I didn't do a lot of performances in salsa. And the ones that I did, I was trying to say that the guy that I danced with that I got the two jobs through, that we had a falling out because he didn't want to pay me or whatever. Don Francisco's like, oh, you've been dancing together. He said it in Spanish for all these years, but we only danced together for like a few weeks to put that together. I don't even know. And I was doing lifts and everything. I had never done lifts before. But that was a lie, because I only had maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get that together. And the other one, he did say two weeks, and that was 2 weeks it took that we put that together. So I never really got to not only perform, but perform the style that I want to, and also kind of solidify the performance, because when you perform the first couple of performances, you're just running through it. It doesn't really bang until you hit about maybe the 10th time you're performing it. So if you don't have that partner that you're consistently training with and consistently working with, it's like you're never really reaching the peak of your ability. So that was always a frustration for me, because in my 20s, I really wanted to perform. Then I got to the point where I stopped dancing for a while. I think it was my later 20s. And I ended up moving to San Francisco. I did a few performances with a group out there, Mambo Romero. And I was out there for 4.5 years. The On2 style was just kind of getting set there. But I really missed the New York flavor. I missed the energy of New York. I ended up coming back. When I came back, I was in my 30s. I decided I wanted to teach now. Another reason I didn't want to teach in my 20s was because I felt that there was a certain obligation. There's a certain obligation when you teach. There's a certain responsibility. And even though I had training and I had this experience and this background, I just wasn't ready to do it then. And I just felt like this is a huge responsibility that I'm not ready for. And I'm not about doing something and not doing it in a way that's integral. Like, I felt like I wanted more experience. So when I came back in my 30s, I was ready to teach. But I needed to learn how to lead. So then I wanted to study with Eddie Torres, because Eddie Torres was it. New York style, Eddie Torres was like synonymous. But unfortunately, Eddie Torres did not allow women to study the lead in his classes. So I was like, I can't even believe this. This is like so fucked up. I mean, how can I teach a class if I don't know how to lead? I have to know both parts. And before that, I had never gone to a formal class. I mean, I had helped when Razzmatazz, they would give classes to students, I would help. But as far as learning salsa up until that point and the Razzmatazz experience, I just danced. And it was the best education. That club style was the best education. I could follow any lead on any count. I understand what it was to follow. I understand social cues, because I organically learned in the club, and I learned from people from all different dance studios, dancing on one, dancing on two, everything. It was a great education in social dancing, and it was a great experience. I feel bad for dancers today that just go straight to the performance. I know they enjoy it, and it's good for the ego. It's a good ego stroke, and but there's nothing like going through that process and that procedure, and those steps. And I feel like they're missing out on something really, really wonderful, and the real essence of at least the On2 style. I can't speak for Cuban, I can't speak for LA, but I could speak for On2 and the New York style. So after that, I was at the Jimmy Anton social, and I was talking to someone there, and I was kind of telling them, I want to learn how to lead. I want to learn how to lead. And at that time, now all the women are leading. Nobody was leading in the clubs. Nobody was doing that. Actually, I think probably women were doing that more in the ballroom studio, but the mentality in the Latin community was like, no, the men lead and the women follow, and that's what it is at that time. So I was really trying to break through something there with that. And he's like, well, why don't you go up to Santo Rico? Like, they're like huge. I didn't really even know about Santo Rico because they were all the way uptown. They were all the way up in Spanish Harlem. But I was like, I don't care. I'll go to the end of the earth because this is what I want to do. I've always been like that. I'll just decide to do something. I really think I get that from my father because, like I told you earlier, when he was like, oh, you know, like, let's go professional, and they just did it, and they traveled the world and were incredible. And, you know, they also were training before. They didn't just jump into it. But so then I went uptown, and they did accept me. They did allow me to learn how to lead there. I loved Santo Rico's intensity because Santo Rico had an intensity that Eddie Torres didn't, as far as the energy in the space. Now that kind of gets a little bit away from the social energy of the dance, but there was the transition happening there because Eddie Torres's vision was for salsa to become this performance art and be right up there with all the other genres of dance. And I came from a very intense training. So that really appealed to me. Another thing that was going on up there was the compact, direct source of the lead and follow. That was not happening in most of the salsa dancing. And that, I think, came again from more technical approaches because of the goal of what they wanted to do. They wanted the speed. They wanted the multiple spins, right? And so all of that came from that. And then from what I understand, or at least what was conveyed to me, the style prior to Santo Rico was really the woman going around the man as opposed to the man going around the woman. So it was like more of a Dominican style that was added. That's what I was told. Do I know if that's factual? I don't know, but that's what I was told and was communicated to me. And again, you learn from your experiences, from you being in the moment, at the place, what people are telling you within the environment. It's like you were there, you've lived it, and you got the information from the direct source, not from a game of telephone. So I started to learn the lead, and I started to get really good at the lead. And I remember talking to another instructor there who found it interesting, a woman leading. So he and I had a discussion with him, and he started wanting to learn how to follow. Don't you think it's important to know what your partner does and what they experience so that you can give them the best experience, and you can both understand where and have the perception from the other side so that you can have a deeper sense of who you are in the partnership. There's no better experience than that than to experience. Nothing trumps experience. You can read a book, you can study till you're blue, but nothing trumps experience, which is why I say when these pro dancers go straight to the studio and the studio never pushes them to go to the club and not only dance with their own people from their school, but people from other schools, they're not having the experience. The education, the book reading, I mean, man, the dancers today can tell you every historical fact about salsa, but they can't follow a lead. They don't even understand what they're talking about because they haven't gone out and experienced it. That's why I would never sit here and talk about Cuban salsa because I didn't go to Cuba and I didn't grow up in Cuba. But I can talk to you about my personal experience within New York City because I've lived it. So that's a huge problem today. And I commend the generation of today for being so diligent about wanting to know the roots of the dance, wanting to study intensely. But at the end of the day, you can't skip over the social dance. At least not in the on two style. I can't speak for any other style. Again, I can only speak from where I came from and from my own experience. If you skip over the social dance, you have no business instructing, not even at a performance level. Because even though performance level and movement is different, and the application of it is different, and the drive of it is different, and the way you use your body is different, the source of the intention of the dance is the same. It's coming from the same source. So when you miss the source, it's like an empty dance. It's just a presentation on because the battery's going dead. I really didn't expect to do such a long live stream, but I'm just going with it. This is like a social dance. I'm just going with it. I'm in the moment and of the moment. That's what social dancing is. Someone asked me, what do you consider a social dance? This isn't what I consider a social dance. This is what a social dance is. It's good to have an open mind, but if you don't have definitive answers and everyone is not on the same page and everyone has a different idea of what a social dance is, that's a problem. How are you supposed to meet in partnership if you're not all on the same page? You tell me that. You answer that for me. So where was I? So I was at Santo Rico and I was studying the lead there. And I loved it. I loved the intensity of the classes. Because even though I was studying the lead, I wasn't just taking a partner class. I was also doing the shines, because the whole class would be like shine and then partner work. I was going every weekend. And, I spent about, I don't know how long. I know I spent about almost $2,000 over maybe a year and a half. And then when I was dancing at one point, Tomas was like, I want you to be in the student group. And he said to me, he's like, I know that you're a professionally trained dancer. He basically said to me, but, this is how I run my studio. I respected that because there was some standard set. And that's important. It's important to have the correct progression, regardless of the fact that I hadn't danced with another company, and those were the two factors. I didn't come from another company that I guess he was familiar with as well. But also, there was a progression. You don't just go to the pro team. You got to go and learn in this, no matter what your level is, you have to put that work in. I just think that Santo Rico had a level of professionalism in certain aspects that other schools didn't, and structure in the way that they built themselves, that the other schools did not have. And I love that because I came from a professional background. I also loved the direct lead. I loved it. I thought it was really brilliant and very, very concise. Because the thing is if you learn how to lead compact first, right, and direct first, you can always expand that. But going from expansion to compact is a lot harder. If you learn to dance like this and then trying to reel it in and learn that whole different technique, it's like learning to dance on one and then trying to learn how to dance on two is a lot harder than learning on two and then dancing on one, because the downbeat is more prevalent and easier to follow and find. So I said yes, and I started to train with the student team. I think I maybe did like 1 or 2 performances with the student team. There was an issue though that was weighing heavily on me, because what happened was when I went to sign for, I had to sign a contract, and part of the contract and part of me joining the performance teams was that I had to stop leading. The other part of it and the conflict was that I came there to learn how to lead so I could start my own dance school, or I could start teaching for myself. So I had those two conflicts. Now, if I was in my 20s, I would have said, fuck it. I'm going to travel the world and I'm going to dance with a top company. But I was no longer a spring chicken. When I came back to New York, it was 2004. So I was in my early 30s, early to mid 30s. I was like, there was another thing that kind of threw it over the edge for me. At that time, Atoy left Santo Rico. She teamed up with Daniel N. Scat, and I forgot the other guy's name. There were 3 of them anyhow. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. And they created Baila Society. And there was a whole dispute because Tomas felt like they were teaching his turn technique. And so the way that they kind of like squashed that was that they gave him his own, what do you call it? Like his own studio within their online studio thing, so that he would make a profit off of that. Somehow I don't know the inner workings of it, but that was part of it. You know, they talked it out and they solved it. And I said, this is going to be an issue. Because the whole point of me studying is so that I can teach. Right? Now, yeah, I can still teach what I know. Right? But I've learned something here, and it's part of what is being done in the social scene. So it can't be separated, because this is a technique that everybody's using socially. It's not just no longer just a Santo Rico technique, even though Santo Rico, you know, was the trademark for it, although I don't think he had it trademarked at that point. It was something just like the Eddie Torres style. I taught Eddie Torres style, but halfway through that, I was like, yeah, this shit isn't adding up. We don't dance like this in the club. I'll get to that later. But anyway. So I decided to leave. I moved from integrity. Like, sometimes I'm honest to a fault. I don't know if that's good or bad. It was a life decision that I made, because I knew that I had a limited scope of time to do something that I really wanted to do. And I had to make that decision. And so I taught, and then the recession hit. That was the end of that. It was very hard because I didn't have a partner. I was doing everything myself, creating programs. I even had a program for professional dancers to learn salsa. I figured, okay, they're going to pick up the movement quicker. I had a work study program where people got to learn for free. I would give them private instruction, and then they would assist me in the class. There were issues with that. You know, sometimes people fall off, they don't continue. You spend all this time and energy. One girl who was amazing, she was such a good assistant in every way. She practiced and she was prepared, and she would help with the videotaping of the classes. And you know, she was an Ivy League student at the time, but then she had to go. She was gonna go to Manila. She was gonna do work there, like social work there. And but the 6 months that she was with me showed me how fast my instruction could excel, because I had a good assistant, and it was a great time period. Because I remember I had a student that I initially taught at the Y, in my local Y. I went back to my old neighborhood and I used to teach salsa there. And the student then came to one of the city classes after I wasn't teaching at the Y anymore. And I also taught in the public library a few classes, which was pretty cool. It's a landmark building, and I used to go to that library as a young child, like in elementary school. Get my shark book. I used to love Sharks by Dr. Zim or some shit like that. I love that book so much. I used to keep taking it out. The librarian was like, "You're taking it out again, right?" "Yeah, taking it again, yeah." I just didn't want to give that book up. I was fascinated after seeing Jaws with sharks, so I used to always take that book out. So yeah, I did some salsa lessons in the library. I also used to go to the colleges and teach in the colleges. I mean, I was just all over the place. I used to give my card out everywhere. I used to go on the trains and solicit on the trains. I almost got in trouble one time. I would have gotten a ticket or taken down by the cops, but because I still have my California license, that's when I first came back. He's like, I'm not going to do this to you because we're going to have to hold you because your license isn't New York. Just don't do it again. I got caught because I was going through the trains and the officers were right in the next car. But I would go through toll booths and give out my card. Learn salsa. I go to the beach. I stand outside of wall bounds with like a clipboard. I mean, I was everywhere. I was doing everything that I could. You have to understand, most people build their classes because they first dance with a company. They get known through a company that's already established, like Baila Society and like pretty much everybody else. Then they break off and then they do their own thing. But I didn't do that. I saw someone comment on a thing and say, yeah, I saw her. She used to try to drum up business. I'm like, yeah, that's what people do when they own a business. What do you think? They sit on their ass? No, they go out and they talk to people and they give out their card. That's how you get students. I was on a train one time and I heard these two people talking, and it was for, what is it? Children's Services, ASC or something like that. One of those governmental agencies. And the woman was talking because they were going to have a Spanish Heritage Month. I said, I'm a salsa instructor, and I'm like, here's my portfolio. And I used to carry my portfolio with me on everywhere I went. And I pulled this out in the middle of the train. I mean, it was just ridiculous, like crazy, But I was doing all of this by myself. I had no help, dude. I was doing everything. I was video editing, and I would edit the videos into 10-minute skits, 10 minutes, so that people could just pinpoint one thing. If it was like right turn, boom. I couldn't afford to hire a professional. I was doing it all. I was making the business cards. I was, doing the website. It was just crazy. It was fucking insane. And then when the classes were finally slowly beginning to pick up, by like the third year, the fucking recession hit in 2008. That was it. I mean, I had like maxed out one or two of my credit cards. Like I just didn't care. Like I was going after a dream, and unfortunately that wasn't a wise decision. I had impeccable credit, and I ruined my credit for the dream. So at least it was for something I was passionate about. I was able to recover that though and land back on excellent credit. But I gave up a lot, and it wasn't a success. And you don't always succeed, even if you have the talent, even if you have the drive. I wish I would have still pushed. I don't know how I would have kept pushing. I really wanted to work for myself, and I wasn't willing to just work for another studio. And I know that's what a lot of people do, but I wasn't going to bend that way. I just didn't want that, and I wasn't going to do it. I had an opportunity at one point. Angel Ortiz asked me to travel with him to Japan as his assistant. But I said, I can't leave. I have my classes. I probably just should have delayed them and done it. It didn't even occur to me. I was just so laser focused. I have a very kind of tunnel vision way of being, unfortunately, that it didn't even occur to me that, hey, this is an opportunity to travel and get some notoriety as a dancer. It used to kill me because here I was in my own classes doing the lead. As such a strong follower, I was doing the lead. And the men were stronger than the women in the class. I'm like, this is fucking crazy. Like, this is bizarre. A lot of frustrations. People that have done it from the base up understand what I'm talking about. It's a struggle. And, in the end, it wasn't a success. I had no business acumen. I still don't have business acumen. I just suck at business. A lot of times it's just sticking it out and just keep going. But when you run out of money and you can't rent a studio and you're unwilling to bend, I don't feel like I would have done anything different. The one thing that I guess I didn't learn anything, but this is me. I'm very hard-headed that way. Like, I make a decision to do something and I'm going to do it that way. And I just feel like it's what I wanted. That was my dream. It wasn't just my dream was wasn't only to do what I loved. My dream was to be an entrepreneur and have my own business, right? So it was a dual dream going on that failed, that did not happen. It was sad. It was a very tough 7 years. Why? Because that hard-headedness, I refused to declare bankruptcy. I was like, fuck that. I'm not doing it. So I just worked and I got back on my feet. It was sad though. It was sad. I definitely, looking back at this age, I definitely had the ability. I had the ability to go all the way up. I don't regret my choices though, because the thing is this, I have footage of everything that I did, because one of my students I was giving a private lesson to was like, I said, he's like, why don't you do like a CD? And I said, because that costs money. You got to hire the videographer. You got to do this and that, whatever. And he's like, well, why don't you video your classes? That's what this other instructor does. And I was like, I could do that. But then guess who had to do all the video editing? Me. But I did it. So I had a whole record of everything that I did. And I don't think I ever would have realized how much I did without those videos. So if you're out there, to the student that suggested that, thank you. Because it was like a vlog of my whole experience, or not all of it, but a good portion of my experience as a teacher and everything that I did accomplish. Because I think that when we have failures, we don't look at any of the successes within the failure. The success that we even had the balls to fucking do it all by myself. And not to say that I didn't have help from the people that were assistants. I had help, and I also had struggles and headaches. And I learned a lot too. I remember reading some of the emails that I would send out, and I was like, my God, I had so much integrity. I'm not saying that I don't have integrity now. I was so innocent, and it's really inspiring. Like, I'm glad that I made the decisions that I made. I never got to have the popular status, but sometimes that's not everything. It would have been great to be able to have a career in dance, and do all those congresses and stuff. But that stuff comes with a lot of drama too. I mean, the salsa scene can be very tumultuous. I equate it to the Hollywood scene, and we all see the shit that's going on with the Diddy trial and all of that stuff. I mean, you can't go unscathed. And the thing with me is that I would not take that shit. Like, I was very lucky. I think that I was able to protect myself in a lot of ways and stick up for myself, because I was very protected by my father and my brothers. I was the only girl and the baby in an Italian household. Very Americanized, but and I think because I was so protected, I knew how to protect myself. Like, I knew the dangers, and I knew how to navigate. Even as innocent as I was, there was an element of my personality that understood how to protect myself, because I had been protected. I think sometimes it really depends on the person and the situation. I can't speak for everyone. But I would think that a lot of times some women that can be more vulnerable may not have been blessed enough to have that protection. I think it does make a difference having that protection from male figures in your life. I was very protected. Like, I never felt unsafe as far as somebody could. I knew that if something happened to me, forget it. I'm not even going to say it, but I don't think those people would still be living. My father did not. My father was a fierce protector. Fierce. And my brother right above me, because I have 3 older brothers, forget it. Fierce protector. And because of that, I think that's why I made the decisions that I made, and why I got out unscathed. But I also didn't climb the ladder to success as far as popularity. I would have liked to learn a lot more And there was another point in my education as a teacher where I was teaching the Eddie Torres style, and I'm like, this doesn't add up. I was just doing the basic. I'm like, this doesn't add up. This is not how I feel the music. And I don't know what I'm going to do about this, because again, my integrity knocking in was like, this is how I don't want to teach my students something that they can't go out to a club and enjoy. Like, the whole reason they're studying salsa is so they could go to the club and dance. So if I'm not going to teach them the popular dance that people are doing, what is the point? So the workaround for that with me was to do not only number counting, but rhythm counting, and to discuss that with them. And I don't know if they remember that, because I would say it, but I wouldn't just do a whole class on it, but I would say it. And, you know, when you're learning something, it takes a lot of repetition for it to be stuck in your head. I just wanted to mention it because I wanted them to understand this is how it feels. This is how the break is supposed to feel. This is how the hold, ba, ba. You don't, the Eddie Torres is taught like this. It's not taught like ba. So I went on the hunt. That's how I got into the Afro-Cuban class. Now, here's the thing. When I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go back to the roots, because this doesn't add up. And I can't, with the integrity of being a teacher, I got to know what this is, what this bump is in the road. It's at that time that I also had a conversation with my mother. And I just wanted to discuss the basics. But my mother, even though she was part of the partnership, she wasn't the musician in the relationship, in the partnership. My father was, and he had already passed away. Man, if I would have been able to tap my father, oh my God, that would have been like the Holy Grail. But it was still helpful to an extent. But I still had to search deeper. So then I started taking the Afro-Cuban classes, which was the Queen's Dance Center. I loved that dance center so much. And unfortunately, it closed. And, you know, this is another thing. It's like, you think, oh, the people that make it, yeah, they're great. They made it. But, you know, there are people that have great shit going on that don't fucking make it. They're busy because it's about, there's so many factors. It's not just about talent. It's not just about skill. There's so many factors. It could be timing. It could be so many things, right? I love that little studio, and Master Poopy used to teach there. I never knew what the fuck he was saying because the whole class was in Spanish. Like, I felt like an idiot, and I'm not good. Like, you know how some people, even if they don't know the language, they can understand the mannerism of what someone's saying. But the saving grace was that Jennifer Danello, who was his life partner and also one of his instructors, she spoke English. And so when I would take her classes, I would get the whole background story for the orishas. And it was like so good. Because if you go to a lot of the Afro-Cuban classes, this is what I'm talking about. People today are so obsessed with knowing all the history and all of this stuff. But if you go to an Afro-Cuban class, they don't even talk to you. The drums play and you move. That's it. And you better fucking pick it up. So all these people that are like, they probably know more than me historically, straight up. They probably know more than me historically, going all the way back to the first person that started dancing song. Okay, but here's the thing. They can't follow a fucking lead. They're asking me what I consider as a social dance. Everyone should know what a social dance is. It should be common knowledge. And I understand why they're doing it, because they're trying to understand the perspective that I'm coming from. I understand that. But I find it irritating. I find it irritating because these people are so educated, but they can't follow a lead, and they're top performers and they skip that step. Let me calm down. I'm going to pull it in. I'm going to reel it in. Where was I at? I'm trying to reel this shit in because it just, oh, so yeah. So my point is that it was great because Jennifer spoke English. I was like, thank you, Jesus. Here's the thing. When I went to take the Afro-Cuban class, I was on the hunt to get to the bottom of why this Eddie Torres basic just does not add up. Because we don't dance like that when we dance in the club. And so that was the hunt that I was on. I said, I got to go to the Afro-Cuban class and go back to the roots. So I go to the Afro-Cuban class, on the hunt. By the way, prior to going to Afro-Cuban class, I'm like, I can't believe I have to take folklorico. This is probably going to be boring for me. I'm a fucking club dancer. How is this going to like resonate for me? I'm like, I got to do this. I'm an instructor. I have integrity. I'm going to do this. Get into the class, start taking it. The most beautiful experience I've ever had. The warmth of the dance. I just can't even explain it. I guess the way I would explain it is I felt like enveloped in a warm hug when I did the dance. And if you do like club dancing and New York dancing, it's very aggressive. It's very reflective of the city. It's very like, bah, do, and it's very like percussive and whatever. And I'm like, I loved it. I was so happy because I thought it was going to be torturous for me. I'm like, what the fuck do I know about folklorico? You know, I'm like, I gotta go back. And then one day I was in the class and she was doing like this upbeat thing, and I was like, that's it. That's it. And I was just like, yeah, that's not in the Eddie Torres style. And it's interesting because I saw a recent video where they were talking about how Eddie Torres devised the style so that people that danced on one would have an easy transition into the on two. But the problem with that is that it doesn't add up. It just doesn't. I mean, I guess it's okay for someone at a basic level, but it was hard for me to teach that because I felt torn. And this is why I didn't teach in I could have not handled this in my 20s. No fucking way could I have handled all of this crazy shit. It's a responsibility. This is why when people see me go off on people, that's why, like, I just get literally, I'm an Aries and I'm very reactive, and it's not good. It really isn't. And I know this, and I know this intuitively. It's not good to just be reactive, but I find it very upsetting. And let me tell you something straight up. Okay. Let me tell you something straight up. If you think that these instructors in these studios and the top level aren't talking shit about other top level dancers, I got to tell you, they are. And don't tell me that it was just instructors from back in the day. No, this is like the way humanity works. Okay. I know that shit was said, and I'm not going to say who, I'm not going to spill any fucking dirt. I don't want to get involved in that, but I was deep in the culture. Okay. I was deep in the culture, in the club scene. I was at the studios. I talked to dancers within these companies, and they would tell me what this head of the dance company was saying about this other head of the dance company. Way up, high people. Okay. The difference is, you know why they stay up there? Because they're smart enough to know you don't fucking say that shit. You're not going to maintain your business if you're talking shit about your competitor. The whole time that I taught, which wasn't very long, was probably like 4 or 5 years. I had started, but then remember, I had to learn the leads. So there wasn't, the first 2 years weren't heavy instruction because I was still studying, and I kind of got detoured at Santo Rico for a little bit. Then I came back. What was I going to say? I forgot. Oh, yeah. I mean, you can't, yeah. The whole time that I taught, I didn't have anything bad to say about anyone, to be honest. I didn't. I wasn't happy with the fact that Eddie Torres, I couldn't learn the lead there. I mean, he's a master instructor. All of his dancers that came out of Eddie Torres that went on to their own thing did amazing fucking things. They developed their own style. So if you're a good teacher, when you can teach someone, not only you could tell that they come from that school of dance, but then they develop their own style within the dance. That's what a master teacher does. He doesn't create clones. A master teacher doesn't create clones. I know a lot of the older generations would give Eddie Torres shit about how everybody looked the same, but I don't believe that. I don't believe they might have looked the same while they were in the company because they were doing the Eddie Torres style. But I think that once they branched off into their own thing, that they started developing. That's natural progression as a dancer. You study under a company, you do that style, and then as you break away, you develop your own style. I wish as an instructor I would have gotten to get to that point, but I was still building my business, and I find that to be a real tragedy because I think I had a lot to share, specifically because I learned how to dance salsa initially in the club. And the thing that I regret a little bit is the fact that I was so hard on myself about being responsible. If I had to go back and teach again, I would not teach the way that I taught. I was very technical with my teaching because I just felt a huge weight as an instructor. And I feel like all instructors should feel that weight because there has to be a level of integrity. It has to. And it's not always there. It's not always there. But sometimes it's just people don't know any better. You know. So anyway, the only time that I spoke out was about what was going on at Baila Society. That really pissed me off. I think it's crazy that I get so worked up over this, but I do because I feel like the culture has added so much joy to my life. I have Cancer. Cancer is my rising sign. If you know anything about the zodiac, Cancer is the mother of the zodiac. Very protective. So I can't help that in me. I get very protective over the dance because I understand things evolve. But there's a difference between evolution and there's a difference between not going through those steps and just pasting something on top. And what you choose to paste on top is even worse when it's something that's furthest from what the dance is. Now, let me talk about Cuba. Cubans study formal ballet. They're huge. They do the folklorico, they do the salsa dancing, the partner dancing. But they study hardcore ballet in that country. They have a full education in dance. I think that all professional dancers should expand and have the full education. Do I think that someone that's coming in to learn the basics of salsa should be learning port de bras and doing a ballet warm-up in a salsa class? No. That set me off. And I said, I gotta say something. And that's when I said something. That was the only time I ever did anything. Because I didn't feel that way about any of the other companies. But I specifically felt that. And I think that Atoy's, she's a trained dancer, obviously. She's highly educated. And she's stunningly beautiful. She shines on the stage. Like, she's, some people just have that presence. And she's got that. She has a lot of training. But I don't respect that she has no respect for this dance. That's my personal opinion. That's my personal take on it. She said it in an interview, and I know she was saying she thought so little of salsa, and that's not the first time that I've heard that. When I've gone to Argentine tango socials, there was another ballet dancer there, and this team seems to be equated with ballerinas. I think because ballet is such a hard form of dance because it's all based on position, strength, and form. And it's vigorous. And if you go on point, that's a whole nother level. And remember my early training. You better be in shape in ballet. They don't take 1 ounce of fat. They throw your ass out. It's very, very, you gotta have a lot of strength to do ballet. And again, I think once you get to a certain level of dance and you've established the understanding of the characteristics of the dance and all of that, then if you want to go into performance or you're heading in that trajectory after you've done your social dance education, then we venture out. And here was the big problem that I had. I had the big problem because she never loved the dance. She said it in her own words, I never had a bug for this dance. She's like, oh, I don't, and she said it like, so like, yeah, I could never understand that, being addicted to it. But I bet you could understand having a bug for ballet. Because when she was talking about ballet, her entire face lit up. That's what having a bug is. That's what having a love for something, that passion. I think she has a passion for education and for teaching and for performance arts. I still don't think she has a passion for salsa. I think it was something to do for her. I think it was something to give her leverage. I think it was a road for her to take. But I don't see how you could have passion for salsa and be teaching ballet. And here's an example of what I'm talking about. I had in my ladies styling and technique class, we used the bar, but I was not doing straight movement with a straight torso at the bar with port de bras. I understand why she was doing it. She was doing it to build up leg strength, balance for spinning, because she came out of Santo Rico. This is why you need a diversity of experiences in the social scene, because that's where you get your diversity. She was only dancing in salsa before she started her own thing for 5 years with Santo Rico. At the time she was studying, and she was barely social dancing. I rarely saw her at a social. I was at every social religiously. Now, whether it was circumstance because she was going for her degree, or whether it was because she just didn't like it doesn't matter. It's not there. There's no drive for that. And that's a problem. This is my professional opinion on this. You don't have to agree with me. This is my professional opinion. People today, when I spoke up again, they said, because I understand this thing that's happened, she's a part of that. She's a part of that. She's a part of the rise of performance art, which also Eddie Torres was striving for, right? It wasn't just her. Eddie Torres had been striving that. He talked about that in his interview on Let's Talk Dance. That was his vision. So she was a big part of that. And people were like, oh, but she doesn't even dance anymore. Yeah, she doesn't dance anymore. She's not in the scene. She's gone. Because she made her money off of it. And now she's off to the next dance. Because her drive is not the dance itself. Her drive is everything but the dance. She likes to educate. She likes to break down movements. She likes to make it into this scientific thing. It's just a goddamn nightmare. Now she's part of competitive dance, being a judge. So she gets to judge the criteria for what is acceptable. And she's not even a hardcore salsera. I don't care if she danced for 10 to 15 years. She skipped. This is what I'm talking about, that step. Gone. It's not there. So what you see is these high-level dancers who have no ability to follow a lead and no love for the social aspect of the dance, which is the source of the dance. When the source is missing, there are fragments. There's all these fragments going on. And people don't understand that even though she's not relevant today, there was that bridge of about a decade where she was it, like Baila Society was it, and they were promoting and marketing hard. And they had all these online classes that shot all across the world because she had the money, the marketing, and the finances and the social status to do it. And it made a huge impact on the direction of the dance. So I see a lot of great things going on with the performers of today. They're just like unbelievable shit they're doing. It's like fucking crazy. But I also see that international dance sports shit going on at the same time, simultaneously. And it's terrible. I hate to see that over exaggeration, those postures that really don't have shit to do with Latin dance. you know, I'm giving my background because I went through all of it. I mean, like, I've been through the ballroom scene. I've been through the Latin scene. I've been through performance. I've been through the classes. I started out in the social dance scene. My parents have a history all the way back to the Palladium. Like, I've been around. Like, I would not talk. And do I know everything? No. No. I wish I would have studied longer the Afro-Cuban. A lot of the Onto instructors, presently the older generation, are upset about the Cuban takeover. I'm upset that nobody respects the New York style anymore, the Onto. It's like they used it as a platform to rise, but now it's like we don't fucking count anymore. And there was something really precious that happened here in New York. Because what people don't understand is that just like there's the LA style and the Cali style, we had our style and it was bastardized. And that's one of the reasons that I talk about Atoy, because I feel like she had a piece in that, a good amount of peace in that. The reason that she had a piece in that, because, and this is what I talk about all the time, is you have these dancers, even in the dance sport, they're great fucking dancers. Like, they're beautiful. They present, they're trained dancers. So they're able to do shit that the average street dancer couldn't pull off. And it's impossible not to recognize them, right? For what their capabilities are, but their choices are fucked up, right? If you don't know any better, it's one thing. But if you know better and you're not doing better and you're just doing what serves you and you're just using the dance as a platform, it's problematic. It's problematic. And that decade or 10 to 15 years just, it really birthed just people going directly to the studio. It's like taking salsa today is like taking a jazz class. Especially the Afro-Cuban. I mean, part of the Onto style was to be in heels. I wish, now that I'm going through the shit that I am in my elder years with a neck injury, I would love to go out social dancing, but I do have dizzy spells sometimes. I'm concerned if somebody spins me, I'm going to fall and hit my fucking head. Especially with the speed of the dance now, and I'm out of shape and overweight for the most part. So, I've just been trying to just be active and just dance, which I probably even shouldn't be doing that, but I'm going to do that because I'm not going down like that. So, you know, the heels were a part of it, man. When I first started dancing, we didn't wear dance shoes. I didn't start wearing dance heels until I went to Cali. Everybody, I'm like, you guys wear dance heels? So then that's how I got into it. And I noticed that everybody then, when I came back, everybody was they had their dance heels. Well, we used to fucking go to like Macy's and buy some heels and just go out. Just dance and, dance in heels. Now everything is barefoot. Well, that's another thing, because it's funny that now I've been dancing in my slippers. You see all those videos I put up? I'm in my slippers. I'm like, how am I ever going to go out dancing again? I'm so relaxed. Like, would I be even able to pull off half of that shit in regular dance shoes? I wouldn't have the slide. In my bathroom, it's like the marble. Paula Abdul, she choreographed Janet Jackson video in her bathroom. Bathrooms are like the best floor to dance on. You can spin. There's not a lot of room. A lot of times I'm hitting myself. But I'm concerned about when I go out, if I decide to go out social dancing, what fucking shoes am I going to wear? Because I don't know that I can go directly to heels because I'm older now and I'm out of shape and there's a lot of elements with my neck injury and stuff. So I don't know that I can go directly to heels. So I'm considering what kind of shoes I want to wear. Like, how am I going to do this? And nowadays you buy everything online, which is another shitty thing. You don't get to try the heels on. And even if you try them on, you still got to dance with them. You can't really dance with the heels because then you'll wear the sole and you got to end up just buying the shoe. But anyhow, this is really kind of like stupid tangent I'm going off on, but I have thought about that. So anyhow, I started this video talking about this woman who's on this real mission. Her name is Diana_Boogie Latino. And she puts up all of these videos and it's comparing the Onto dancers I know, Andrea, but you know, I'm old school and I feel like I'm selling out to dance salsa in sneakers. I see the younger generation doing it and I'm like, whatever. And I'm like, you know, I don't know. I probably will have to, I don't really have a choice because I have a very bad neck injury. And I've been even having kind of dizzy spells and I'm concerned. I just don't want to fall and like hit my head because, you know, it will take time for me to work up the endurance to get back. I think, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll just go and snap in there. I don't know. I'm praying, but, you know, I'm concerned with the speed of the dancing and not having been doing it and the complexity of the patterns these days. You know, am I going to fall and like bust my head open or some shit? I shouldn't even project that. I'm going to cancel that energy. But, you know, what can I say? But here's the thing. This is the shit. I've been watching this woman. She's on this mission. I get part of it. She's talking about, you know, people that do the mom and pop style in their holiday parties of the culture. And how this on-to style that we do in New York is very intimidating and very judgmental towards people that come in there. And so she puts up these dancers. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of shocked because she's literally using other people's footage. I think you can do that legally, but it has to be like under 15 seconds or something. She put this pair that I think are beautiful dancers. But I got into this whole discussion because I think these two are just amazing dancers. Heels, and I never were friends. Wear whatever makes you happy. Yeah. You know, when I dance in heels, I feel like I get on the top of my foot, like on the ball of my foot. It gives me like a prop up. I always love dancing in heels. I just don't know at this stage in my life if I'll be able to pull it off, especially since I haven't been dancing in heels. I will never forget the first time I seen you dance at Latin Quarters and I was a fan. Oh, doesn't matter what you wear, it will, you, oh, thank you. You're getting me emotional. You are. I miss it. I miss it. I really do. Anyhow. I didn't realize how much I missed it until because you brought me back there. You brought me back. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I've been very vocal online. I think when I go out, like people are going to come up to me and curse me out. They're going to curse me out, Andrea, because I've really just been putting my 2 cents in, you know. I understand that dance evolves, but there's a real disconnection in the social dancing. And my professional and personal belief is that the source of the on-to dance style comes from that place. It comes from the club. And when you skip that and you just go to the studio and perform, there's a lot of really high-level dancers that are beautiful. They can't follow a lead. I can see it in 2 seconds. Like, I know how to spot it. They look down at the feet. That's like a beginner. So they're like doing amazing shit in their performances and even in their classes, and their body movement is so fluid and incredible. And then they get on the social dance floor and it's like watching a 12-year-old. It's like watching someone in elementary school, salsa dancer, just learning how to follow. It's pretty wild. So that's what started this whole video. But this is a very extreme thing that this woman is doing, because she's going all the way to like the house parties, and then she's pulling up people's videos. This couple, they're really beautiful. But one thing I was saying in the comment section of this video was that the social dancing that they're doing is not social dancing. These positions in the upper body, it's too much form. The jolting of the spins where she's jolting, you don't do that in a social dance. You don't, that's not social dancing. That's someone who's a trained dancer who crossed over and they're promoting themselves as teaching social dancing. But the posture of the upper body in social dance is not supposed to be, it's supposed to be formless. In fact, the one thing that's interesting is when you see the social dancing from the couple that aren't really trained dancers, they're not going to have that because they don't have any training, right? So even though they may not be as proficient socially, they do have the correct posture, which just relax. You see how relaxed the elbows are and the arm, they're just moving. That's the energy of a social dance. So I kind of got into it with this guy in the comment section. And the interesting thing was that guy was I don't know if he's Puerto Rican, he's Hispanic. So he's like, oh, I get, that you dance in the, like in the backyard, and I grew up like that, but I feel much better and more connected being a trained dancer now that I'm trained. But if you go look at his video, he doesn't have any of those postures. You know why? Because he doesn't even he's not even conscious that subliminally he learned the difference between a social dance and a performance dance. Anyhow, that's what I came on to talk about. But I ended up getting into the whole background, my background, because a lot of times people think if you talk that you don't have the training and the education to be able to say those things. You don't have the experience. No one really knows me except you, Andrea, and the people from that time. But no one really knows me. So they think I'm just some old woman, some vieja coming out just talking shit, that I don't have any training. So I literally went through my entire, almost all of it, my entire dance background, and just got into the whole conversation about it. This way people know who I am. They know that I've studied, that I've put in the work, that I've tapped every kind of, even Afro-Cuban for a little stint there. I understand it and I get it, because if someone's talking and they're talking like they're an authority figure, I want to know what their background, what are your credentials to be saying these things. So some guy literally was like, well, maybe if you took a class. I'm like, I used to teach classes. I have a performance degree, a Bachelor of Fine Arts in dance, and it's a performance degree. I said, I learned salsa in the club, but I also took salsa from one of the top teams in New York City. So, whatever. I don't really like to talk like that, but I understand why people want to know what your background is. They want to know that you're not just spitting shit. Then they might listen to you because they're like, okay, this person actually does have some kind of accolade. But at the end of the day, if you're not some popular name to them, I don't really think it's going to matter. I would love to get back out there again, but I'm so afraid of how out of shape I am, and I too don't know what shoes you see. It doesn't matter what level, and what level dancer you are. It doesn't matter. Everybody has that same feeling when you've been out of it, and you just have to get back into it. You just have to make the move. I'm not in the city anymore. I'm in the suburbs, so that's another factor. I haven't really heard of any socials out on the island that are slamming. So I am a little bit of a salsa snob. So, I want to go into the city. But honestly, I've seen some of the socials. I feel like the energy in the socials, they're not what they used to be. New York, everybody used to come from all over the world just to go to Jimmy Anton's social. I feel like New York City has lost its edge. And part of it is because we just have factory schools now. They're just churning these performances out with like no connection. I saw this one video that literally horrified me. These people were rehearsing for a performance, and the girl went to do a dead drop, and the guy was supposed to catch her, and she did it before he was ready, and she literally fell flat. And they were laughing like it was a joke, and I'm just like, there's nothing funny about this. I mean, you can get injured and these people, they don't have I can see they don't have the control over their body to be doing this advanced movement, and it kills me, and I'm very passionate. So anyhow, I don't even know how long this video is. I've been going on for like at least an hour now, so I'm gonna have to log off. But I'll give you a heads up. I'm considering going to, what is it, the SBKZ event that's going to be taking place in January. I'm considering it. The reason I'm considering it is because there's these Cuban dancers, and I'm a hardcore New York dancer, but these dancers I feel are like once in a lifetime. Have you heard of that woman Indira? And I think her partner is Jose. I'll send you a video of them. I'm just like blown away. This woman is like a goddess. I'm not even into Cuban salsa, but they're so good that they could possibly convert me. So I feel like they're gonna be at this event, and I may not only attend. I've never done this in my life with a salsa congress. I may actually like book a hotel, because at this age, I'm sorry, I don't want to be on the train all the way from the island. Like, I can't. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm definitely considering it because they're extraordinary. They're extraordinary. And you know what's interesting? I saw a few videos of her social dancing, and I didn't feel like she was a strong social dancer either. But I don't know. It's hard to tell, because there's times where she is okay if she has a strong lead. And I also wonder if, because she's so gorgeous, she's had to deal with guys kind of like being inappropriate with her. So I can't really tell. But she is a goddess. Oh my God, this woman is so good. And her partner too. They did this Afro-Cuban demonstration of the orishas, like back to back. Like literally like maybe 16 counts of each orisha. And I was just like, holy shit, this is phenomenal. I mean, I probably won't be able to walk by the end of the weekend, but I may go. If I go, I'll let you know. Maybe we can both face our fear together. But if I decide to go, I'm probably going to have to try to find a social just to get myself moving again before I go. But I'll let you know. I'll let you know if I decide to do it. I'm really, really considering it. Just because I want to see that couple. I got to see her. I got to see her live in person. She's amazing. She's amazing. Both of them are amazing. But her presence is like on another level. And she used to perform as I think she was like an on-call performer for Cirque du Soleil as well. She's got a lot of diversity in her dancing. Anyhow, I have to get going. I don't even know if I got to the crux of this this video. Should I talk on it very briefly? I didn't mean to talk so much, but it was like walking down memory lane. I'll talk briefly about it. I'm just going to talk about one thing that the gentleman asked me. He said, what do you think a social dance is, and what do you think connection is? A social dance, I felt like this is so basic. I don't even understand why I would have to explain it. What is the definition of social? What is the definition of socializing? It's a physical conversation with no words. The conversation is with the body. There's a call and response, just like the music, call and response. It's organic. It's not contrived. So in other words, it's not just made up of steps that you learned in a class. So, and it also is constituted by the energy, and it's not a presentation, it's a conversation. Let me give you a few examples. So, if I'm going to have a conversation with someone, I'm socializing at a party, and they're standing right here, I'm not going to scream in their face. I'm not going to be like, hey, how are you? They're right here. We're having a conversation. The reason performance movement is bigger is because you are projecting to an entire audience. During a social dance, it's an intimate conversation that you would have. It's natural, organic. If I asked you, let's say I saw you on Tuesday. I saw you on Tuesday and I said, hey, how are you? And you responded to me. And Tuesday you were feeling great. Oh, I'm having a great day. I'm having a great day. And you're dancing like you're having a great day, right? And then I see you on Thursday and you're not having such a good day. So maybe your movement is a little softer. But it's all in here. It's not out here. It's not projection. It's not showcasing. Now, did we sometimes showcase as trained dancers in a social dance to show off a little bit because people were watching us because we were good dancers? Yeah. But the crux of what we were doing was a simple conversation. Simple conversation. It wasn't made up of posturing. It wasn't made up of contrived movement. And the body wasn't made up of positions. Like when someone's doing a and they have like, all you see is this elbow. Who turns like that? What is a social dance? I mean, it's a problem when I understand wanting to have an open mind and open dialogue. But if we're not all on the same page with what a social dance is, it's a big problem. I also understand that he was trying to understand the perspective that I was coming from. Like, I get all of that. These are basic foundational questions. There's a difference between how you dance when you're the energy of the dance, the position, the body, the way you hold your body, the give in the body that has to happen in order to be able to respond to a lead that you don't have when you're on stage in a performance. Okay, there's two things going on. There's a minimalistic thing happening with followers because they can't follow the lead and they don't know how to improvise. I literally saw someone, this girl's beautiful. I've seen her do her body movement, incredible. She gets into the dance, she's literally just doing something out of a class. It's so obvious. It may not be obvious to people that are not trained and that don't know any better, but to someone like me who's come up through the social scene and have done all the different elements that I'm discussing, because I would not be discussing something unless I experienced it. And I don't know everything, but I know what I know, right? So, therefore, when I see this, it's so disturbing to me. It's so disturbing. And that's what happens when you have people that are using something as a platform to raise themselves when they're not really passionate about it and they don't have the courage to go after what they are passionate about. If you love ballet, go pursue it. Go do it. But don't use someone else's platform to make your money, to strip the dance, and to make future dancers disconnected from the very essence of what the dance form is. And on that, I will close. If you got to this far in the video, wow. Thanks for listening. I'm glad you cared.